Chapter 752. The wind at night was really cold, and Xie Jingxing only brought Shen Miao to the outside of the princess residence, as the Shun family's carriage was still waiting outside. Shen Miao still wanted to speak, but Xie Jingxing's shadow had disappeared from her side. It was Mo Qing and Ah Qi who were somewhat surprised to see her suddenly appear at the residence's doors. Ah Qi asked, "Why did Miss come out alone? Where are the others?" Just as they were speaking, Jingzhe and Guyu ran out panting, and after seeing Shen Miao, they also gave a sigh of relief. Jingzhe said, "These servants were waiting outside. Yang Gugu said that you have come out, and this servant thought that she was lying. Later, when I saw that there was no one in the room, I came over to take a look. I didn't expect Miss to really come out. She looked left and right again and was confused. But there is obviously only one room. We guards outside and didn't see when Miss came out. Could it be that there is a secret passage in the princess mansion?" Guyu hurriedly coughed lightly to remind her not to talk nonsense. This was after all outside the princess residence, and even if the princess residence had a secret passage, it was the princess residence's secret. How could it be spoken out so unscrupulously by them? Jingzhe stuck out her tongue and glanced at Shen Miao. Shen Miao's brows were tightly locked, and her expression was somewhat grave. When Jingzhe saw it, she whispered, "Just now when one entered, her Princess Highness' expression was not very good. Young lady, did you quarrel with her Princess Highness?" Shen Miao shook her head. Thinking of everything that happened in the princess residence today, she felt that her head was about to explode. He climbed into the carriage and said, "Let's go back first." If there was anything, she would continue to think about it when she returned to the Shun mansion. After all, everything that happened today was really out of her expectations. Just as the horse carriage was about to set off, Shen Miao could not help but lift the curtain to look back. The darkness of the night covered everything, and there was no moonlight, so nothing could be seen. She sighed softly. In a corner not far from the princess mansion, the purple-robed youth silently watched the carriage leave. Gao Yang's folding fan was no longer swaying lightly. Instead, it was folded and tucked at his waist. He looked at the handsome young man in front of him with a rare, complicated expression. He asked, "Is it worth it?" "There will always be such a day," Xie Jingxing said indifferently. "Don't you feel it's a pity?" Xie Jingxing's lips curled up slightly. The mask covered his face and expression, but one could still imagine the slight ridicule, some disdain, and cold expression. He said, "It's just fate." Gao Yang did not speak, and after a while, he shook his head and patted Xie Jingxing's shoulder. A few maids dressed as servants came out of the princess residence. They were holding a basket of something in their hands. They poured the contents of the basket onto the ground and threw the basket together with the basket on the ground. One of the maidservants said regretfully, "These things cost quite a lot of money. If we sell them in a medicine shop, we might be able to make some money. It's a pity to throw it away like this." "What do you know?" The maidservant at the side glared at her. "Who knows if this thing is poisonous or not? If it is, wouldn't it be troublesome to sell it? All right, stop looking. Let's go." The two maids turned around and returned to the princess residence. There was only a basket left on the ground. It was sent over by the medical hall earlier and, very coincidentally, received the medicine for Princess Rong Xian's heart disease. However, at this moment, it was thrown away like a shoe and was even given the suspicion of being poisonous. Gao Yang's face was somewhat unbearable. One's heart would not be happy no matter how big one's heart was when one's efforts were wasted. He wanted to say a few words of comfort, but Xie Jingxing had already walked far away. He was dressed in brocade clothes, and his figure was tall and straight as he leisurely walked in the night. His entire body was filled with an unstoppable elegance. It was just that that back view was somewhat lonely. Chapter 753. When Shen Miao returned to the Shen mansion, Shen Xian and wife were waiting for her in the residence. The sky was already dark, but Shen Miao had not returned. Thus everyone thought that something had happened. Seeing that she returned safe and sound, they were relieved. Shen Miao had something in her heart and said that she was somewhat tired and wanted to rest early. Everyone did not suspect anything. When Shen Miao returned to the bedroom, she let Jingzhe and Guyu leave and sat down in front of the table. Her heart was somewhat uneasy. Xie Jingxing appearing in the princess residence today and exposing his identity in front of Princess Rong Xin was a somewhat rash decision. Moreover, Xie Jingxing was not a rash person. Other than helping Xin Miao out of the predicament, there was no other reason to do so that Princess Rong Xin would not do anything to the Xin family. It was not what Xin Miao was willing to see for the pleasant surprise situation to become difficult because of her. One had to know that even though Xie Jingxing said that he was powerful, he did not really hurt her from the beginning to the end. Xin Miao did not know how deep the relationship between Princess Rong Xin and Xie Jingxing was, but in the princess residence, Princess Rong Xin's reaction after confirming Xie Jingxing's identity was indeed chilling. Xie Jingxing did not say anything and looked indifferent, as if he did not care about it at all, but Xin Miao knew how much damage one would get from one's close ones. Just like how Fu Xiu treated her in the past lifetime and how the second and third household of the Shen family treated her, it was because of how cold they were when they shed all pretense of cordiality and how much they ridiculed each other when they were warm and affectionate. If it was Xie Ding's disregard or harm, Xie Jingxing could not care, but Princess Rong Xin might not. After all, Xie Jingxing's first tiger head bracelet was given to Princess Rong Xin. After all, when he returned to the Ding capital 2 years later and knew that Princess Rong Xin had a heart illness again, he would immediately send people to search for the medicine. After all, there was some friendship in it. Xin Miao stood up with some irritation and walked to the window. She opened the window and looked out. The sky outside the window seemed to be splashed with ink, and the Ding capital in the winter night revealed a bleak and desolate feeling. She thought for a while before turning around to return to the room and took out a thick crimson fur cloak from the box to cover her body. He tied the rope in front of his cloak tightly before walking to the window and calling out softly, "Song Yang." A black shadow fell down from the tree and stood straight in front of Xin Miao and said respectfully, "What instructions does young foreign have?" Xin Miao was now unable to hear Song Yang's address. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "Bring me to see Xie Jingxing." Song Yang opened his mouth wide and sucked in a breath of cold air. He was born to be somewhat serious and usually had a serious expression on his face. At this moment, his expression was somewhat comical. Xin Miao was somewhat angered by Song Yang's gaze and said, "Do you have any ideas or not?" "Young madam." Song Yang came back to his senses with a troubled expression on his face. This subordinate doesn't know where master is right now. Xin Miao frowned. Song Yang had been keeping an eye on her in the Xin mansion, so it was indeed impossible for him to know of Xie Jingxing's whereabouts. Tonight, when she came out of the princess residence, Xie Jingxing had left too quickly, and she did not have the time to ask. Right now, no one really knew where Xie Jingxing was. But one did not know why. She felt that Xie Jingxing should be in the residence of Prince Rue at this moment. His emotions were hard to distinguish, and he was used to hiding his emotions under a mask. Thus, Xin Miao felt that if Xie Jingxing was frustrated, he would be alone. She made a prompt decision and said to Song Yang, "Bring me to the residence of Prince Rue." Song Yang revealed a troubled expression, and Xin Miao frowned and asked, "You can't even do this?" Song Yang quickly explained, "This subordinate can naturally do it alone, but bringing along young foreign would not be able to do it." Chapter 754. Xin Miao asked him, "Do you know Qinggong?" Song Yang hurriedly nodded his head. "Then it is all right," Xin Miao said. "Grab me and bring me to the residence of Prince Rue." Her thoughts were very simple, just like what Xie Jingxing did to her in the past. Song Yang was after all Xie Jingxing's people, and to a certain extent was more convenient to use than Mo Qing and the rest. The most important thing was that she did not want Xie Jingxing's identity to be known by more people, as it would be more dangerous for one person to know about it, even if it was a person that one trusted, because there was no telling when one would be used by others. When her words were spoken, Song Yang shook his head repeatedly, and there was even some fear in his eyes. "Cannot." "What is it now?" Xin Miao's patience was about to run out. Song Yang said, "Males and females are not clear." Xin Miao. She did not know where did Xie Jingxing found these guards that were more disciplined than females. But no matter what Xin Miao said, Song Yang was not willing to bring her to the residence of Prince Rue. Shen Miao was also in a difficult situation. If she did not allow Song Yang to use his Qin Gong, she would have to walk out of the Shun residence's doors. The Shun residence's doors were guarded by Shun Xian soldiers, and it was impossible not to alarm them. To leave in the middle of the night, one feared that before she could even leave the doors, everyone in the family would wake up in twos and threes. At that time, she would not be able to explain at all. Shen Miao had a terrible headache. She looked at the wall outside the courtyard, and suddenly a light bulb went off in her mind. When Xie Jingxing just moved to Yanqing Lane because he was not short of money to spend, he simply bought all the neighboring residences between the residence of Prince Rue and the Shen Mansion, and even glorified it as neighbors. Looking at it this way, it could be said that the residence of Prince Rue was neighbors to the Shen Mansion. It was just that the room that Xie Jingxing stayed in was a little far away. Since it was a neighbor's residence, Shen Miao's gaze landed on the high wall in the courtyard. She said, "Climb over the wall." Song Yang looked at her blankly, as if he did not believe his own ears. He was ordered to protect Shen Miao's safety and had been watching Shen Miao's every move in the Shen Mansion, so naturally he knew what kind of person Shen Miao was. Shen Miao was dignified and calm, abided by the rules, and was able to endure loneliness at such a young age. She looked like a noble that came from a faraway land. In short, even some of her small actions showed that she had a good upbringing. Song Yang often sighed in his heart that this young madam was different from others. She was born to be extremely noble. Who knew that at this moment, he would hear that this noble young madam wanted to climb over the wall. Song Yang thought that there was something wrong with his ears. Shen Miao glared at him and said without anger, "Are you unable to hear my words?" "Yes, yes, yes." Song Yang stood up straight and did not dare to look at Shen Miao's expression. The following days were enough to make Song Yang feel pain. Previously, he thought that Shen Miao wanted to climb over the wall herself, but the wall that Shen Miao mentioned was to stack things on both sides of the wall to form a staircase. Shen Miao then walked from one side of the wall to the other side. In the middle of the night, Song Yang only went to steal the haystacks that the rich people left to fertilize. But the problem was that there were more than 10 courtyards between the residence of Prince Rue and the Shen Mansion. There were walls between each courtyard, and Song Yang was so busy that he was sweating all over even on such a cold day. Seeing Shen Miao arrogantly walking past one wall after another, as if she was not walking on the wall but the high steps of the imperial palace, he sighed and at the same time complained incessantly about his fate. If it was not that he was afraid of tarnishing young madam's body and provoking master's dissatisfaction, Song Yang would not need to put in so much effort. One had to know that his Qin Gong was not bad, and it was more than enough to fly with a person, so why would he need to run around now? Previously, when Master transferred him out from Mou's army, his colleagues were all envious of his good luck, but did not know that this good job was to be a coolie for others, and was even worse than a manservant. Song Yang silently cried in his heart. Chapter 755. When Shen Miao flipped over the last wall and arrived at the residence of Prince Rue, Song Yang was so tired that he did not want to speak. Because they entered from the direction of the inner courtyard and did not walk through the main entrance, there was not a single guard in the huge residence of Prince Rue. Song Yang also revealed a puzzled expression. Obviously, it was not that undisciplined in the past. Shen Miao was still looking at the layout of the residence of Prince Rue. It was indeed as magnificent as the rumors said. It was just a temporary place to stay, and it was actually so meticulously renovated. She did not know how extraordinary the real Great Liang's imperial palace would be. Just as she was thinking, there was an additional black-clad middle-aged male in front of her. "Tai Yi," Song Yang shouted and immediately asked, "Where are the others?" The guard called Tai. He was surprised for a moment when he saw Shen Miao and cupped his hands towards her. "Is there an important matter for young Lady Shen to visit?" Shen Miao looked at the other person's appearance and seemed to know her. Seeing that Song Yang was greeting him, she guessed that he was Xie Jingxing's people and said, "I am looking for Prince Rue and have some words to say." Tai seemed to know that she would say that and nodded his head. "Master is in the inner courtyard. Follow me." When Ming Qi's winter was cold, no one was willing to walk around outside. If it was at night, there would be no one on the streets. Even the birds, cats and dogs would curl up in their warm nests and were not willing to move at all. The water in the pond had already frozen. The thick ice had completely covered the scenery inside. The entire garden was filled with lotuses and koi swimming in the wind, but it was a vast expanse of whiteness. It seemed that no matter how good the day was, there would be a moment when it would pass, just like how the flowers that bloomed in spring would one day wither. The purple-clad youth was lazily sleeping on the tree with his hands supporting his head. He did not take off the mask on his face, and there was a lantern hanging on the tree. Under the faint halo, his expression could not be said to be desolate nor happy, but there was some slight loneliness. Like the wind passing through the trees, it was light but also cold, quiet and silent. Under the tree, the white tiger lay down. From time to time, it would use its claws to scratch the tree trunk. Occasionally, it would use its mouth to bite the icicles that had fallen on the ground. The crunching sounds of its bite could be heard clearly in the night. When Shun Miao came in, this was the scene that entered her eyes. The youth and the white tiger were sleeping, but it made her think of herself in her previous lifetime. Walking through the imperial garden in the middle of the night in the palace, her eyes seemed to be filled with the laughter of Fu Xiao Yi and Mei Foreign in the day. It was somewhat bitter as she walked endlessly. When the white tiger suddenly saw that someone was coming, it immediately stood up and looked at her warily with its body arched. It let out a low warning howl, but because it was too small, it didn't seem threatening at all. The sound it made was also holu holu, which was quite cute. Shu, jiao jiao. Xie Jingxing said, "Be quiet." Shin Miao. She walked under the tree and raised her head to look at the person sleeping in the thicket. "Who are you calling?" Xie Jing's actions paused and suddenly lowered his head. When he saw Shin Miao, he was surprised and asked, "Why are you here?" The words in the princess residence were not finished, so one came over to take a look. Xie Jingxing swept a glance at her and did not come down from the tree. Instead, he laughed softly. "You came because you are concerned about me? What you think is your business?" Shin Miao answered, "Could it be that you think that I will be sad?" Xie Jingxing seemed to have heard a joke, and his expression became more interesting, really naive. "It is best that there is none." Shin Miao did not care about his somewhat mocking words and spoke calmly. Xie Jingxing stared at the sky and lazily waved his hands. "You go back. I am fine." Chapter 756. Shin Miao did not go back. That white tiger on the ground seemed to have sensed that Shin Miao did not have any ill intentions, and moreover its master did not show any hostility. So it gradually relaxed its vigilance and snuggled up to Shin Miao's feet, making hoo-loo-hoo sounds. Shin Miao quietly looked at the youth on the tree. After a long while, she asked, "Xie Jingxing, do you want to destroy Ming-Chi?" The air quietened down in a moment, and there seemed to be a small, lingering light that leaked out from the lantern. The dim light and the branches covered the youth's expression, and even if one could see it, one could not see his expression clearly with the mask. One could only see a corner of the gorgeous purple robe hanging down, and the golden embroidered pattern was shining brightly under the light. Those silk threads crisscrossed, but vaguely outlined a picture of an auspicious beast. It seemed to be a dragon. The silence was frightening as he did not answer. The white tiger whimpered softly before turning and running back into the bushes. Shin Miao leaned against the tree and lightly said, "If at the end you only want to destroy Ming-Chi, then everyone in the middle can be chosen. Different paths do not work together. Some people are very good but are destined to not be on the same path. If one is not on the same path, then who cares what he does?" Xie Jingxing laughed, and his voice was heard from above. "Are you comforting me?" "No, I am comforting myself," Shin Miao answered. She could understand Xie Jingxing, as she and Xie Jingxing were somewhat different. Xie Jingxing was a man, and moreover he was more decisive in killing. One believed that after tonight, she would still be that victorious Prince Rue. Nothing would be difficult for him, and nothing would be able to stop his footsteps. He was like a lion and was an extremely powerful existence. It was just that when he was licking his wounds alone, she coincidentally bumped into him. "Do you also have sad matters?" Xie Jingxing teased. It was still a cynical tone, but Shun Miao knew that there was no smile in his eyes at the moment. It was because there were some emotions that even he himself was unable to conceal. That was why he went up to the tree where no one could see, and was not even willing to take off his mask and sit quietly. My sad matters are no less than yours. Shun Miao smiled gently. At least Princess Rongxan is still alive. The most painful thing in the world should not be that the person who was misunderstood and blamed is no longer around. Some mistakes can be compensated for, and some cannot. Just like her Wan Yu and Fu Ming, she could save many people, but only these two could not be saved. In this lifetime, even if she exhausted her entire life, she could not save them. Regardless of whether she was able to take revenge in the future, or whether she could live a prosperous life with the Shin family, there would never be a chance to make up for this regret. She could only chew it over and over at night. Even entering their dreams was an extravagant hope. You also know that this day will come sooner or later, so why worry so much? Doing one's best and knowing heaven's will, one have done one's utmost benevolence and duty. No matter how excessive the rest are, it is only fate that has reached the end. Shun Miao said, no one is to walk the same path with anyone for a lifetime. For example, my marriage. Fu Xiaoyi and I are not on the same path. The Crown Prince is not on the same path as me. Huang Fuhao is not. Feng Zixian is not. Luo Ling is not. And Pei Lang is not. Fu Xiaoyi and the Crown Prince were part of the Fu family, so naturally they were enemies, and it was impossible for them to be together with Shun Miao. Huang Fuhao had ulterior motives, and Feng Zixian grew up with the wind and current. The flowers that were raised in the greenhouse were different from her bones. Luo Ling's character was upright, so how could he understand the dark schemes in her heart? As for Pei Lang, he had complicated entanglements. In the previous lifetime, he had also heavily added a stroke in Shun Miao's life, and this stroke made her and Pei Lang forever separated by something, making it impossible for them to treat each other honestly. Chapter 757. If you say it like this, then there is no one in this world that is with you, Xie Jingxing reminded. That is the truth. Shun Miao silently sighed in her heart. A person who climbed up from the grave and lived a second time, in some aspects, should be similar to a ghost. She had always been walking alone on the road of revenge. Then comforting me like this would give me an illusion. Xie Jingxing gently smiled. You are with me? The wind picked up the leaves on the ground and blew across the lake. The surface of the lake was as hard as a rock and could not be moved. But one could vaguely see the spring breeze blowing across the surface of the lake, the ripples of the water, the sparkling spring water, and the beautiful scene of red flowers and green willows. Winter will pass and spring will come. Shun Miao's voice was very light, even lighter than the night wind, as it scattered in the air. She said, who says it is not? If you comfort me like this, it will give me the illusion that you are on the same side as me. Who says it is not? A shadow flashed in front of the tree, and someone came down from it. The youth's back was tall and handsome. When the white tiger saw its master coming down, it immediately ran over in joy and intimately rubbed against the corner of the other's robes. Do you think that I am the great Liang's Prince Rui, or the Marquis of the residence of the Marquis of Lineage? He asked. Shun Miao leaned against the tree with her hands behind her back and looked at his back view. Is this very important? I also thought that it was not important. Xie Jingxing stood by the pond, and his voice was calm, as if there was no fluctuation at all, as he calmly narrated. From the moment I knew my identity, someone kept reminding me that this is very important. The Marquis of Lin and is weak and incompetent, indecisive and not fit to be a father. Even if the real little Marquis Xie did not die prematurely, he would still die in Madame Feng's hands. Aunt Rong treated me very well. I thought that it was important to others, but to her, my identity was not important. But now it seems that I made a big mistake. He lightly said, to the people of the world, this question is important from the beginning to the end. There is no fluke. One thought that some feelings could break through the shackles of identity and family could be above everything. But in the end, it was no less than a fierce slap on one's face. Most importantly, it should be that deep sense of disappointment. Shun Miao stared at his back and said after a long time, it is not important to me. Xie Jingxing laughed softly. He turned and walked toward Shen Miao and stopped in front of Shen Miao. He looked down at Shen Miao from above and asked, "Do you know who I am?" "You are only Xie Jingxing." She did not want to admit defeat and raised her head as if she wanted to suppress the other's imposing manner. "Only?" He was slightly displeased. "You can deceive others, but not me." Shen Miao looked at his mask. "I knew what kind of person you were from the beginning. From the moment I met you to the end of the alliance. You are only Xie Jingxing, nothing more." Xie Jingxing made a meaningful "ob" sound. He took another step forward, and Shen Miao subconsciously retreated. She was originally leaning against the tree, and now with her back against the tree, there was no way to retreat, but Xie Jingxing lifted her chin. Xie Jingxing said, "Do you think that I am very cruel?" "Do not think so. I am also the same." Shen Miao answered, "Then do you know that I am not a good person?" His voice was low and pleasant to listen to, and in the night, when the cold wind blew into one's ears, it made one's body feel hot. Shen Miao shrank back again, but was not willing to be looked down upon, and only said, "No, I am also the same." Xie Jingxing held her waist and pulled Shen Miao towards him. The mask blocked his face and made his handsomeness have a trace of bewitching mystery. He said, "Then I can answer your question now." "What question?" Shen Miao was puzzled. "You asked me if I want to destroy Ming Qi." Shen Miao stared at him. That pair of beautiful eyes were full of bright lights that were so deep that one could be sucked in. "Then what is your answer?" she asked. "If I say yes, will you report me?" Xie Jingxing smiled evilly. Shen Miao slowly said, "Will not, because I am also the same." Just one sentence, I am also the same, but it made Xie Jingxing's gaze change. It was like a cluster of sparks blooming in the cold, icy plains. One could not tell whether he was happy or angry as he only asked, "Do you know what you were saying?" Shen Miao was silent. He gritted his teeth as if he wanted to swallow Shen Miao whole. He said, "Shen Miao, do not regret it. Once you board my boat, do not leave in this lifetime." He suddenly leaned over and kissed Shen Miao. Shen Miao subconsciously wanted to dodge, but Xie Jingxing grabbed her waist and pulled her into his embrace. His cold mask touched Shen Miao's face and imprisoned Shen Miao's hands as he roughly kissed her lips. Chapter 758. 175. His kiss was hot, but the silver mask was cold, as if it was carrying some kind of indescribable emotion that covered the sky and earth. The more Shen Miao struggled, the more firmly he imprisoned her. He locked her in his embrace and used a kind of vow gesture to possess her lips. The flowers that bloomed in the winter, the butterflies that fluttered in the autumn, the ice spring in the summer, and the snowflakes in the spring were all unable to describe the strangeness of this moment. There was the whistling sound of the wind beside her ears, but that beautiful youth's embrace was strong and the kiss was scorching hot, as if she was unable to escape even if she tried her entire life. When Xie Jingxing released Shen Miao almost went limp and was almost unable to breathe. In her previous life, she admired Fu Xiaoyi, but from the beginning to the end, she was hot-headed. On Fu Xiaoyi's wedding day, the bridal chamber was just a perfunctory gesture. She had never been so intimate with a male before. Feeling that she had lost her composure, Shen Miao flew into a rage out of humiliation and glared at Xie Jingxing as he supported her to prevent her from falling. But she did not know that she had just been kissed. Her pair of eyes were so moist that they were almost overflowing with water. Her face was flushed red, and her red lips were like flower petals, but it made one want to love her even more. Xie Jingxing moved his gaze away to hide it. Other than feeling embarrassed and angry, Shen Miao was also at a loss. In all fairness, she had more or less expected it to be like this. As for why she did not stop it or let it develop, it was because she followed her heart and made a subconscious reaction. Shen Miao did not want to delve into the reason. "Tell me about your marriage." Xie Jingxing resumed his cynical tone and said, "What are your plans now?" Shen Miao looked at him inexplicably. "What plans?" Xie Jingxing narrowed his eyes at her, and his tone was somewhat dangerous. "The crown prince, Luo Ling, Feng Zixian, Su Ming Feng, Pei Lang. Who do you want to marry?" Shen Miao frowned and pretended to think seriously. Xie Jingxing's eyes narrowed and said in an unfriendly tone, "You really want to marry someone else? Why can't I want to marry someone else? Kiss me, touch me, and dare to wear a green hat on me. Shen Miao, your courage is not small." Shen Miao smiled gently. "Could it be that you want me to marry you? You are finally smart for once," Xie Jingxing leisurely said. Shen Miao was surprised for a moment. It was not that she did not think about the relationship between her and Xie Jingxing. The two of them said that they were allies, but in the end, their relationship was even more ambiguous than that. When it comes to the matters between men and women, even if you haven't eaten pork, you've seen pigs run. Shen Miao was also aware of some things from the same heartbeats in those nights. But this did not mean that Xie Jingxing could marry her. Xie Jingxing was Prince Rui of the Great Liang, and she was the daughter of the Ming Qi's general. Not to mention if Ming Qi's side would agree. One feared that it would not be easy to explain to Emperor Yongle. Especially looking at the current situation, Xie Jingxing seemed to have a very high position in the Great Liang. The more power he grasped, it meant that Emperor Yongle valued Xie Jingxing more. A courtier who was valued by the emperor had many things that were beyond his control, including his own marriage. When Shen Miao was still distracted, she heard Xie Jingxing speaking again. "You do not need to worry about anything. Just obediently stay in the room to embroider the dowry and wait for me." "When did I agree to marry you?" Shen Miao asked. "Oh?" Xie Jingxing pondered for a moment before his lips hooked up into a smile. He said, "I also do not mind cooking the uncooked rice tonight." Shen Miao looked at him vigilantly, but Xie Jingxing smiled and said, "You look like you were looking forward to it." Shen Miao decided that she could not continue talking to Xie Jingxing like this anymore. This person was bad to the bones and could not even speak properly with 3 sentences of teasing. She said, "I have a solution for the crown prince's matter." Chapter 759. Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows. "You already have a countermeasure?" "I suddenly thought of it." Shen Miao emphasized, "Need your help? Need my help?" Xie Jingxing smiled gently and whispered as he looked at her, "Your husband will help you." Shen Miao. When Shen Miao returned to the Shun mansion from the residence of Prince Rui, it was almost dawn. When they returned, it was naturally Xie Jingxing who brought her back. When he knew that Shen Miao came over by climbing over the wall, Xie Jingxing's smile almost made Shen Miao angry. But after this night, many things quietly changed. Shen Miao had a strange feeling when she was discussing with Xie Jingxing about the countermeasure to the crown prince's marriage. She had always been alone on the path of revenge. Now that there was an inexplicable strong enough reliance behind her, it made her feel at ease. Especially that this reliance was rather smart, as he was able to see the loopholes in the countermeasure that she proposed and was able to propose improvements. Shen Miao felt that their partnership was very compatible. Unknowingly, the words that Xie Jingxing said that night floated in Shen Miao's mind. To let her embroider the dowry obediently. Xie Jingxing was a person who looked indifferent on certain matters, but Princess Rong Xian's words were right. He knew what he wanted and what he did not want from the start. Shen Miao was also not clear how much of Xie Jingxing's words were true. But on the matter of Shen Miao's marriage, Xie Jingxing displayed an absolute strength and overbearingness that made others have no room to refute. Shen Miao sighed. The road ahead was long, and the muddy waters of Ming Qi had not been cleared, thus it was too extravagant to mention about feelings. If Xie Jingxing really had that ability and dared to marry the daughter of another country's general, then there was nothing that she would not dare to marry. Because Shen Miao reached out and touched her heart. One did not know if there would be another person in this world who could make her heart beat again. Her lips were tingling as if there was still a residual heat that made her lower her head. Undeniable duplicity and unsuppressible heartbeat. The young man was handsome and beautiful. He was decisive, wise, and calm in killing. It was difficult to not be tempted. In the residence of Prince Ding, it was brightly lit that night. When Fu Xiu found out that the marriage between Shen Miao and the crown prince was suppressed, it was because of Prince Rui's unintentional words. That night, all the advisors were called to the residence of Prince Ding to discuss the matter from beginning to end. I had previously guessed that the relationship between Shun Miao and Prince Rue was not that simple. Now testing it on the crown prince, indeed the horse's feet were exposed. Fu Xiaoyi sneered. Once Shen Miao makes a move, Prince Rue would not be able to sit still. Pei Lang stood below with his head lowered and did not say a word. These days, Fu Xiao, he had changed his previous regard for him and no longer asked for his opinion on many matters. The contrast was too big and naturally fell into the eyes of the other advisors. They thought that Pei Lang had offended Fu Xiaoyi and were rejoicing in his misfortune. But Pei Lang knew that for such an intelligent person like Fu Xiaoyi to inexplicably give him the cold shoulder, he must have found some clues. Perhaps his relationship with Xin Miao had already been detected by Fu Xiaoyi. Although he was burning with anxiety, Pei Lang could not show it at all. Fu Xiaoyi had not shed all pretense of cordiality, so he must have his own intentions. Perhaps it was only a suspicion that had not been confirmed. To put up a show, one must complete it and not give up halfway. Pei Lang was deeply aware of this logic, and the reaction he showed was that of an ordinary advisor who was given the cold shoulder. What is Gentleman Pei's opinion? Today, for the first time, Fu Xiaoyi asked for his opinion. Pei Lang's heart jumped, and he lowered his head. This subordinate thinks that one should immediately investigate the relationship between the Shen family and Prince Rue, or the Great Liang. Shen Miao's identity is special and represents the most important military power in Mingqi. If the Shen family and Prince Rue had reached an agreement privately, one fear. Chapter 760. The advisors started to discuss. Even though they were dissatisfied with Pei Lang, they had to admit that Pei Lang's words were not wrong. Shen Miao was after all a young lady and not a great beauty that could cause the downfall of a country. Rather than saying that Prince Rue flew into a rage because of a beauty, it would be more reasonable to say that Prince Rue valued the Shun family behind Shen Miao. Fu Xiaoyi said, "Gentleman's words are correct, but I heard about one thing today." Everyone waited for him to say the rest of the words. Shen Miao stayed in Princess Rong Xian's residence for a day. The princess's health was not good, but she was left alone till night. Moreover, it seemed that after Shen Miao left, the princess did not seem to be in a good mood. Fu Xiaoyi smiled. Could it be that the princess also knows something? After a moment of silence, one of the advisors said, "Perhaps Princess Rong Xian knows some inside information. Your Highness might as well start from Princess Rong Xian's side. Perhaps you can find some clues." "I also think so." Fu Xiaoyi looked at Pei Lang, and one did not know if he was deliberately saying it for him to hear. Even though Shen Miao has the backing of the Shen family, she herself is also very strange. Prince Rue only helped her in every matter, so there must be some hidden reasons. If Princess Rong Xian is also involved, then things would become interesting. Paper cannot wrap fire. I must uncover the secret between them. Fu Xiaoyi smiled meaningfully. One still have to rely on everyone. Everyone continuously said that they did not dare. Pei Lang lowered his head, but a trace of uneasiness flashed past his heart. That night, there was no peace in the princess residence. Princess Rong Xian sat in the Xingji courtyard for an entire night. Xie Jingxing did not die, and instead became the Great Liang's Prince Rue. This was something that Princess Rong Xian had never thought of. In the past 2 years, Princess Rong Xian had countless times hoped that one day she would discover that Xie Jingxing's death was just a dream. She hoped that when she woke up, that arrogant and handsome youth would still be standing in front of her and lazily call her Aunt Rong. However, when this moment really came, the first thought that came to Princess Rong Xian's mind was not gratification. He was wearing a noble purple gold robe, and the corners of the robe could be embroidered with a flying dragon with golden thread. He wore a cold mask and greeted her familiarly, but he had the title of Prince Rue on his head. That was the biggest threat from Mingqi. Princess Rong Xian was initially angry at being concealed, but when she realized Xie Jingxing's identity, Princess Rong Xian's most instinctive reaction was to be vigilant. This did not mean that she did not love Xie Jingxing, or that all those years of companionship were fake. It was because she was the princess of the Great Liang, and the arrogance and paranoia of the imperial family would always appear at this time. She was writing a letter in front of the table, and it was an obscure reminder to Emperor Wenhui. After writing halfway, she suddenly stopped and tore the paper in front of her into pieces. The entanglement and complexity in her heart could not be expressed in words. But she was not willing to see Xie Jingxing again, because she was afraid that she did not dare to face him. And what made Princess Rong Xian most suspicious was that it was fine if Xie Jingxing did not die. But how did he become the younger brother of the great Liang's Emperor Yonglu, Prince Rui? The title of Prince Rui was obviously not something that could be casually used by others. Was Xie Jingxing originally a great Liang's person, or was he bought by the great Liang's people by chance? If it was the former, then it was pardonable, but if it was the latter, then Xie Jingxing was a living traitor to the country. Xie Ding and Xie Jingxing were not close, so it was not possible to ask Xie Ding. Shen Miao must know something, but Shen Miao would definitely not say it. Xie Jingxing was also protecting her, thus it was not easy for Princess Rong Xian to move. After thinking about it, Princess Rong Xian finally thought of a person. Chapter 761. She and Xie Jingxing had grown up together since childhood, and the relationship between the two families was not shallow and could be considered as Xie Jingxing's best friend and Ming Qi. Because they grew up together, they were always together, so there was always time to see Xie Jingxing's different places. The heir of the Count of Pingnan, Su Mingfeng. Princess Rong Xian called a servant to bring the invitation over. The days were getting closer to the end of the year. The commoners were busy preparing for the new year, and the streets and alleys were bustling with activity every day. Life was always so smooth that ordinary people would not be able to think of what the high-ranking people were thinking about. Just like how goshawks and sparrows saw the sky, they were destined to be different. Ever since Emperor Wenhui was shocked by Prince Rui's ambitious idle talk, he had more and more thoughts of forming an alliance with the Qin country. It was just that the real reason for Princess Ming An's case had not been ascertained. Until now, there was still a line separating them. But as Emperor Wenhui showed more and more sincerity, Huang Fuhao's attitude also loosened. The Ming Qi's government officials were at Huang Fuhao's disposal, and even the Supreme Court of Justice had to accept Huang Fuhao's questioning from time to time. No matter what the final result was, Emperor Wenhui had indeed given Huang Fuhao enough face. Until now, the cause of Princess Ming An's death was not found, and Huang Fuhao thought that it was not that Ming Qi was deliberately covering it up. After all, he had personally seen the progress of the case. Perhaps Princess Ming An had offended an important person. Otherwise, how could there be no trace left at all? Not mentioning about Princess Ming An's matter. The words that Prince Rui said to Emperor Wenhui finally reached Huang Fuhao's ears. If one were to say that Huang Fuhao represented the Qin country at the beginning and had the intention to form an alliance with the Ming Qi, but deliberately put on airs in an attempt to seek more benefits for himself, then when he heard Prince Rui's words, Huang Fuhao could not sit still. If Prince Rui represented the Great Liang and really wanted to take over the few cities that produced ores in the Ming Qi, then as Emperor Wenhui was worried, the Great Liang's ambition was not just a few cities, but the Ding capital and even the entire Ming Qi. Then the Ming Qi would be in danger. Without the lips, the teeth would be cold, and a single Qin country would not be a match for a large number of people. Not to mention that after absorbing the Ming Qi's troops, weapons, and wealth to the Great Liang, it would be even more unstoppable. At that time, when the Great Liang would come to clean up the Qin country would not be able to turn the situation around. The purpose of the alliance between the Qin country and Ming Qi was only to contain the Great Liang. Huang Fuhao passed the news back to the Qin country. Even though the Qin emperor was angry that he had lost a princess in Ming Qi, but a princess was insignificant compared to the entire Qin country. The Qin emperor only let Huang Fuhao temporarily suppress the matter of Princess Mingyan and must form an alliance with the Ming Qi. After Huang Fuhao received the news from the Qin country's emperor, he ran to the Ming Qi's palace more frequently these days. One had the intention to form an alliance, and the other was worried that he did not have any helpers. They hit it off, and on the surface they were happy and harmonious. Thus the relationship between Emperor Wenhui and Huang Fuhao was much closer. Emperor Wen Hui had the intention to support the crown prince and previously wanted to marry Xin Miao to the crown prince, but who knew that he would suddenly peak at the great Liang's ambition and did not dare to take action against the Xin family. Now that Huang Fu Hao had come over, it was just right for Huang Fu Hao to interact with the crown prince more and let Huang Fu Hao owe the crown prince a favor. Everything in this world was naturally linked in countless ways. Relationships that usually seemed to have nothing to do with each other were intertwined with each other through all sorts of intertwining and weaving. Intelligent people were good at finding places that they could use in these relationships, but if an ordinary person was not careful, they would be lost in all sorts of intertwining. In the residence of the Minister of Land, Xin Dongling was drinking tea. Good quality either grew on the dangerous peaks of the southern country, and a small pinch was worth a few hundred taels of silver. Her posture while sipping tea was graceful and cozy. She was wearing a cotton jacket embroidered with Jiangnan embroidery. She was also very pretty and delicate. At first glance, one could tell that she was a charming young married woman who lived like a prince. Chapter 762. But who would have thought that not long ago, she was still an unknown Shu daughter in the Shen residence. She did not leave the courtyard all year round, and the servants did not recognize that she was a young lady of the Shen residence. Not to mention that when Run Wan Yun was the head of the household, there was not a single sight of meat or oil in the meals for 10 days to half a month. The past and present were like the difference between clouds and mud. People walk towards higher places while water flows downwards. Even though this residence of the Minister of Land was not as powerful as other official families, it was considered to be overflowing with wealth. There had never been anyone who relied on the salary of the imperial court to live. Before marrying into the residence of the Minister of Land, Xin Dongling had always thought that the Wang family followed Prince Zhou, but after that she found out that the real master of the Wang family was the crown prince. As a Minister of Land, the family actually had such a rich family property. It was because the Wang family had some dealings with the salt smugglers, and the money naturally flowed into the residence of the crown prince. But even if the goose's feathers were plucked, the little bit of goose's feathers that were deducted was enough for the family to spend money in the Ding capital. There was no need to think too much, as one had to know that the salt smugglers were a profitable business with little capital. If one were to say that the matter of money was already Xin Dongling's surprise, then Wang Bai himself made Xin Dongling extremely satisfied. Wang Bai looked honest but was actually shrewd and could be considered as one of the great generals under the crown prince. In the beginning, Xin Yu looked down on Wang Bai, but did not know that it was because she had eyes but could not see. Xin Dongling was born pretty and her temperament was even softer. The most important thing was that she would always give some suggestions on Wang Bai's matters, but she never interfered excessively and cautiously kept a distance. The more it was like this, the better Wang Bai treated her. To marry a wife, one must marry a virtuous one, especially when this wife was not only virtuous and intelligent, but also charming and considerate, which was even more valuable. Wang Bai had always been glad that Xin Dongling and Shun Yu exchanged marriage at that time. In the Minister of Land's family, Wang Bai was the only son, and Wang Bai was also very capable. Thus, Wang Bai was the one in charge of the Wang family. Naturally, Xin Dongling became the matriarch of the Wang family. The servants all respected her, and if Run Wan Yun was still alive, she would be so angry that she would fall down. That Shu daughter that she regarded as an aunt was now living a more comfortable life than Run Wan Yun, and Wan Yinyang naturally rose with the tide and lived a wealthy life. It was the same today. Wang Bai returned from outside and handed the pastries in his hands to the servant girl. "I passed by Guangfu Zhai and bought your favorite cloud cake on the way." "Thank you, my husband." Xin Dongling poured tea for him with a smile. Her every move revealed a soft and boneless feeling. Most likely it was because she was the daughter of Wan Yinyang that she had some special amorous feelings in her bones. She smiled and said, "My husband is very happy today. Did something good happen?" Wang Bai didn't hide most of his matters from Xin Dongling, because Xin Dongling wasn't a talkative person. She would occasionally share his worries. Now that Wang Bai and Xin Dongling had just gotten married, they were in a sweet relationship. Wang Bai said, His Majesty wants Huangfu how to have more contact with the Crown Prince. Most likely, he wants to establish good relations with Qin. His Majesty had given such a favor to the Crown Prince. It was obvious that he wanted to support the Crown Prince. When a person achieves Tao, his chickens and dogs will also ascend to heaven. Since we are the Crown Prince's people, when the Crown Prince inherits the throne in the future, he will only give us a share of credit. He smiled as he looked at Shun Dongling. Do you think that there should be a celebration? Shun Dongling's thoughts turned for a moment, but immediately a surprised smile bloomed on her face. Really? Finishing, she looked at Wang Bai with some adoration and softly said, "Husband is really powerful. It is really the good fortune that this concubine had cultivated in her previous life to be able to follow husband. Any man's vanity would be greatly satisfied to be looked at by such an enchanting woman with such a worshipful gaze." Wang Bai smiled. Is this easily satisfied? He sighed and said regretfully, if His Majesty had bestowed 5th Shun young lady's marriage to His Highness the Crown Prince would have the support of the Shun family's military, and it would be more advantageous. Our chances of winning would be higher. Even though there is a temporary friendship with the Qin country, but in terms of military, he sighed, strength is often the most important. Chapter 763. Shun Dongling's thoughts turned, and she snuggled into Wang Bai's embrace. She reached out to touch Wang Bai's chest and said softly, "Husband is just too harsh on yourself. To be able to do all these, one is no longer an ordinary person." This was what Wang Bai wanted to hear. He smiled. You are really content. This concubine is content to have a male like husband. Shun Dongling smiled tenderly and asked unintentionally, now one cannot let 5th younger sister marry the Crown Prince. 5th younger sister? Wang Bai was surprised for a moment before saying, almost forgot that you're sisters. His unintentional words were exceptionally harsh to Shun Dongling's ears. It was as if he was saying that she was a Shu daughter and Xin Miao was a Di daughter, and there was a difference between Di and Shu. One's greed would grow with the change of environment. In the past, Shun Dongling had to be busy protecting herself in the Shun residence and find a way for herself to survive. Thus she could endure those ridicule and sarcasm and did not have the time to bother about it. However, when she became the Furin of the Minister of Land, she became especially sensitive to these things. She buried her head in Wang Bai's embrace and did not let Wang Bai see her somewhat hazy expression at the moment, but asked, "Is it not possible?" "It is not that it is not possible," Wang Bai said. "It is just that it is difficult to see the great Liang's ambitions and other matters will be delayed. One still needs Shin Xian's prestige. It is just that Shin Miao is not young anymore, and one heard that the Shin family does not wish for Shin Miao to marry into the residence of the Crown Prince. The key point of this matter is to complete it as soon as possible. If it is dragged on for too long, it would be hard to avoid changes. Shin Xian would find a marriage for Shin Miao, and there is a high possibility that Shin Miao would be married off. At that time, the Crown Prince's plans would fall through. Cannot the marriage be settled first? Shun Dongling asked. Fool, Wang Bai said. Shin Miao herself is also not willing to marry the Crown Prince. If one were to use extreme means, it would not be good to make Shin Xian dissatisfied at this time. Isn't this bullying others with one's own power? Shun Dongling's lips twitched. However, her words did not even have the slightest thought for Shun Miao and treated those bandits who disregarded the wishes of others and imposed their demands on others as people who were wronged. It can be said that, Wang Bai said with a smile, then why are they allowed to use their power to bully others, but not the Crown Prince? Wang Bai smiled. The Crown Prince is a virtuous man. He cannot do such a thing. The Crown Prince can't do such a thing, but someone else can? For example, ordinary people. If everyone in the world wants 5th sister to marry the Crown Prince, wouldn't this be considered as using the power of the common people to bully others? Wang Bai originally thought that Shun Dongling was speaking in a fit of pique, but who knew that when she heard the latter part, her expression gradually became serious. He looked at Shun Dongling. Shun Dongling sat in his arms, looking adorable and innocent, as if she had just said it casually. But Wang Bai was a smart person. He could find some details from Shun Dongling's words. He asked, "Don't tell me you have another bad idea? Tell me about it." "My husband is really cunning. What's in it for me?" Shun Dongling asked. "Yes." Wang Bai pretended to think for a moment and said, "If you say it well, then I will think of a way to ask for a title of nobility for you." He thought that if Shin Dongling really had a way to let Shin Miao marry the crown prince, then he would have made a great contribution. Even if the crown prince ascended to the throne in the future, he would still remember his kindness. It was not a loss to ask for a title of nobility for Shin Dongling. When Shin Dongling heard it, a trace of satisfaction flashed in her eyes. She said, "I am not doing it for the title of a foreign, but for you, my husband. Whatever my husband wants to do, this concubine will naturally support it. If my husband wants to assist the future ruler, then this concubine can only show her incompetence." She said wittily, which made Wang Bai's heart happy. "Actually, this method is very simple. As long as the crown prince of the Qin country cooperates, it will be fine," she said. Chapter 764. This method is very simple. As long as the crown prince of the Qin kingdom cooperates, it will be fine, Shin Dongling said. When Wang Bai heard this, he asked, "What do you mean?" Shin Dongling smiled. "Currently, our Ming Qi is not about to form an alliance with the Great Liang. According to my husband's words, the Qin state must be happy to form an alliance with us. What if the condition of the Qin kingdom's alliance is to marry the fifth sister? That's naturally not possible. Even if His Majesty had no choice but to agree for the sake of the commoners, General Shun would not agree to marry fifth Shin young lady far away." Wang Bai was very clear that everyone in the entire Ding capital knew that Shin Xian doted on his daughter Shin Miao. It was already impossible for her to marry out of the country, not to mention to a faraway place like the Qin state. Not even once in a few years. Shun Dongling smiled. It is precisely this logic, but if this news were to spread out and the commoners of Ming Qi know of this matter, they would definitely request General Shun to marry fifth younger sister over. After all, Huangfu Hao was the crown prince of the Qin kingdom, and his looks were not bad. It would not be a loss for fifth sister to marry him. If eldest Bo did not agree and the Qin country would not form an alliance with Ming Qi, perhaps the Great Liang would take advantage of the loophole and the Ming Qi would be in danger. One fifth sister in exchange for the safety of the common people. Regardless of whether it's worth it in eldest uncle's eyes, it's worth it in the eyes of the common people. Wang Bai fell in a deep thought. Shin Dongling continued. "Everyone knows that my first uncle puts the righteousness of the world above his own life. Now, he is being threatened by the common people. He can risk his life against the government, but he cannot disregard the wishes of the common people. Even His Majesty cannot act recklessly. He has to consider the wishes of the people, not to mention my uncle. On one hand, eldest uncle did not want the Great Liang to have an opportunity to take advantage of. On the other hand, he would definitely not allow fifth younger sister to marry far away. But who could stop Huangfu Hao? Even if they did, they might not dare to do so. At this time, as long as His Royal Highness the Crown Prince comes forward and says that fifth younger sister has already been selected by the Crown Prince's residence, everything will be easily solved. This, Wang Bai was a little hesitant. Shin Dongling continued to smile and said, "Huangfu Hao cannot ignore the Crown Prince's face. Moreover, there were indeed rumors of this matter a few days ago. Huangfu Hao only needed to ask around, and he would be able to find out. Compared to marrying Huangfu Hao and living far away in Qin, first uncle was naturally more willing for fifth younger sister to marry into the Crown Prince's residence, where he could look after her from time to time." The Crown Prince stepped forward bravely at this critical juncture. Eldest uncle will be grateful for the Crown Prince's kindness. Wang Bai's eyes lit up. He was astute to begin with, so he naturally discerned the merits of Shin Dongling's method, and he fell into deep contemplation. Shin Dongling did not finish her words. She wrapped one arm around Wang Bai's neck and said, "But this play naturally needs Huangfu Hao and His Highness the Crown Prince to cooperate. Your Highness the Crown Prince can give Huangfu Hao some benefits, and Huangfu Hao will get it. Let's put on a show together, and let nature take its course. Wang Bai hugged Shen Dongling tightly and kissed her on the cheek. I never thought that I would marry a think tank. Shen Dongling lowered her head in shame. Don't tease me, my husband. I just thought of it suddenly. There must be many inappropriate parts, but my husband will definitely think of a way to make up for it. It is already not easy for you to think of all these. The more Wang Bai looked at Shen Dongling, the happier he felt. This time you have helped me a lot. Rest assured, when the matter is completed, I will definitely mention your contribution in front of the Crown Prince, and let our linger to be awe-inspiring. Shen Dongling's heart was filled with disdain. When a man established a career, what they were most afraid of was that the credit would be shared by others, not to mention that she was a female. It would be strange if Wang Bai would mention her contribution, and it was just flowery words at this moment. Chapter 765. However, understanding was one thing, but Shen Dongling still pushed Wang Bai away and said anxiously, My husband, please don't mention that this was Concubine's idea. Who would scheme against his own sister for no reason? If it wasn't for helping my husband solve his problems today, I wouldn't have ended up like this. If these words were to spread, how would I be able to face others in the future? Wang Bai was just casually saying it, and if Shen Dongling were to accept it, he would feel that she was too greedy for credit, but at this moment Shen Dongling's flustered rejection made him feel extremely satisfied. The more he looked at Shen Dongling, the more adorable she was, and the more glad he was that Shen Dongling and Shun Yu had exchanged marriage. He said, Fine, I won't say any more. But this was not a bad thing. Marrying the Crown Prince, and in the future when the Crown Prince ascends to the throne, fifth Shen young lady would be the noble consort, and in the future she would thank you. This is a good thing that you can't get even if you beg for it. Shen Dongling smiled and said, This concubine thinks so too. But in her heart she knew that Shen Miao was not a person who coveted power, and the Shen family had already regarded Shen Miao as the pearl in their palms. So those riches and honor were not important to her. From some aspects, Shen Miao was the same as Shun Xian, with a kind of stubbornness in their bones. For others, marrying the Crown Prince was a good thing. Even if they didn't want it before, they would be satisfied after a few days. But Shen Miao was different. If she took a wrong step, she could kill herself. Even if he didn't show it on the surface, he definitely wouldn't feel good in his heart. Sorry, Shen Dongling said in her heart. In the entire Shen residence, the person she was most unwilling to be enemies with was Shen Miao, because Shen Miao was also very dangerous and had the unconditional support of Shun Xian and wife. However, the present was different from the past. Now that Shen Dongling had the qualifications to go against Shen Miao, Shen Dongling suddenly remembered that she was actually jealous of Shen Miao. Shen Dongling was able to step on the rest of the people in the Shen residence, including the second and third household, Shen Yu and Shen Qing, but she could not be compared to Shen Miao. The family that Shen Miao relied on was precisely what Shen Dongling would never be able to obtain. Once a lowly person gained power, they would abandon their previous cautiousness and humbleness, which would instead make people feel even more twisted. This was why a scholar from a poor family would become incomparably arrogant when he became a minor official in the dynasty. Because of his status, he was afraid that others would see through him at any time. Shen Dongling was lost in thought when she heard Wang Bai say, At this time, we need to make a good plan. I have to discuss this with the Crown Prince first. Shen Dongling came back to her senses and said with a smile, It would be good to invite fifth younger sister out. She thought for a moment and said, I can send an invitation to fifth younger sister. Oh, Wang Bai asked, Will he come out? It was as if she had long known that the relationship between Shen Dongling and Shen Miao was not close. But when it fell into Shen Dongling's ears, it seemed to be mocking the difference between her and Shen Miao. Suppressing the displeasure in her heart, Shen Dongling said, My husband doesn't believe me? Don't worry, I will definitely call fifth younger sister out. In the residence of the Count of Pingnan, Su Mingfeng was currently having a headache. Yesterday, Princess Rong Xian actually came to the residence of the Count of Pingnan. Princess Rong Xian had not gone out for a long time and lived in seclusion, so no one paid attention to her. Moreover, she was in disguise, so Su Mingfeng almost did not recognize her. for Princess Rong Xen to lower herself to come to the residence of the Count of Ping Nan. There must be a very important matter. Princess Rong Xen let the servants directly inform Su Ming Feng, indicating that this matter had nothing to do with Su Yu and was specially here for him. Even though Su Ming Feng was puzzled, he did not dare to neglect and welcomed Princess Rong Xen in, thinking that Princess Rong Xen wanted to instruct him to do something. Who knew that Princess Rong Xen was not here to instruct people, but to inquire about information. Chapter 766. And the news that she inquired about also made Su Ming Feng surprised. The news that Princess Rong Xen inquired about was about Xie Jingxing. Xie Jingxing died 2 years ago in the battlefield of the Northern Jiang. Because everyone in the Ding capital knew that Xie Jingxing and Princess Rong Xen had a very good relationship. So after Xie Jingxing died, Princess Rong Xen fell into a serious illness. Since then, no one dared to mention Xie Jingxing in front of Princess Rong Xen, lest it made Princess Rong Xen remember the sad things. Who knew that now Princess Rong Xen took the initiative to ask about Su Ming Feng. Princess Rong Xen asked Su Ming Feng about Xie Jingxing's past matters and even beat around the bush to find out if Xie Jingxing had any secrets. Finally, she asked about Xie Jingxing's corpse. Xie Jingxing was initially killed by the enemy's tens of thousands of arrows at the Northern Jiang, and his head was hung on the city walls by the enemy's leader before being skinned and dried. At that time, the Xie family's army could not fake it under the watchful eyes of everyone. Afterwards, when they thought of ways to retrieve the corpse, it was already so tragic that it was shapeless, and it was not a complete corpse. At that time, when Xie Ding saw Xie Jingxing's corpse, he fainted, and Princess Rong Xen was afraid that she could not take it and did not dare to look. It was Su Ming Feng, his childhood playmate, who sent Xie Jingxing on his last journey. Now that Princess Rong Xen came to ask Su Ming Feng if he was sure that the corpse was Xie Jingxing. If it was normal times, Su Ming Feng would at most feel some doubts, but ever since he met Shin Miao on the streets and discovered the tiger head bracelet on Shin Miao's wrist, Su Ming Feng had some doubts in his heart and kept staring at Shin Miao's movements in the Shin residence. Princess Rong Xen would suddenly look for him to inquire about Xie Jingxing's matter. Su Ming Feng almost immediately confirmed his own guess. Xie Jingxing did not die and most likely was still alive in this world. Even though he did not understand why Xie Jingxing did not appear if he was still alive, Su Ming Feng was not stupid. After he dealt with Princess Rong Xen with a few words, Princess Rong Xen left, and Su Ming Feng fell into his own thoughts. Since Princess Rong Xen had doubts, she must have found some clues, which meant that Xie Jingxing must have revealed something. Thinking of Shin Miao's bracelet and Princess Rong Xen's strange behavior, Su Ming Feng had a bold guess. Not only did Xie Jingxing not die, he was also in the Ding capital. But what made Su Ming Feng puzzled was that there were no secrets between Xie Jingxing and Princess Rong Xen, and their relationship was the best. What was it that made Xie Jingxing unwilling to tell the truth in front of Princess Rong Xen? Moreover, why did Princess Rong Xen ask about Xie Jingxing's childhood? What was the connection? No matter what the reason was, Su Ming Feng felt that Xie Jingxing had his own reasons. The most important thing was to find Xie Jingxing's whereabouts. After finding Xie Jingxing, all the questions would naturally be answered. Where could she go to find Xie Jingxing? One could say that the Ding capital was not big, but it was definitely not small. To find a person who was hiding in the vast sea of people, especially when that person was quite capable, it was definitely not an easy matter. Su Ming Feng intended to send people to keep an eye on Princess Rong Xen. Since Princess Rong Xen had already found some clues, the thing she grasped must be more than him. Whatever Princess Rong Xen investigated, he only needed to follow behind and take advantage of it. Su Ming Feng raised his hand to summon the servants. She whispered a few words into his ear. When Shin Miao received Shin Dong Ling's invitation, Xie Jingxing was drinking tea in her room. Ever since that night, Xie Jingxing had a justifiable reason to manage her matters. At first, Shin Miao was not used to it, but later she got used to it. Anyway, Xie Jingxing's hands and eyes were everywhere, and even if she did not tell him, he would think of ways to find it himself. At the end, it would still be the same ending. Xie Jingxing glanced at the invitation in her hands and said, Shun Dongling. Chapter 767. Most likely he is planning something, Shun Miao said, inviting me to taste the incense. She was startled for a moment before smiling. Since the incense is out, it seems that the foundation of the Minister of Land's residence is not bad. Tasting tea and wine were generally very standard, but tasting the incense was different. A good piece of incense was worth 1,000 gold, and it would be gone once it was burned. Shun Miao knew that the most expensive incense was the jade pear agarwood. A piece of the size of a fingernail would cost 10,000 taels of gold. There was once a merchant from the western region that came to the palace as a tribute and wanted the title of an imperial merchant. That jade pear agarwood was the size of a child's fist and was very rare. At that time, all the concubines in the inner palace came to take a look, and Shun Miao also felt that it was a novelty. Shun Miao had always thought that the jade pear agarwood would be placed in the imperial treasury, as it was a very precious thing. Afterwards, on Mei Foran's birthday, Fu Xiu lit the jade pear agarwood and won the beauty's smile. Tasting the incense was burning real gold and silver, and it was equivalent to losing a lot of banknotes. Shun Dongling's invitation said Phoenix Mouth Agarwood, and it was also very precious. The salary of the Minister of Land's family would definitely not be able to withstand this kind of torment. It was obvious that the family that Shun Dongling married into was a well-off family. After all, many of the officials in the Ding capital would not be squandering like this. One did not know if Shun Yu in the Nine Springs would be so angry that she would come back to life after knowing the truth. Phoenix Mouth Agarwood is not cheap, and to spend so much money, it is definitely not just for sisters to reminisce about old times. Scheming against you? Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows and asked. Shun Li is not Shun Yu. If she really wanted to scheme against me, I would not be easily schemed by her. Shun Dongling is not stupid, and I guess that she wanted me to go to plan something. If I were to go over, it would only make her matters smoother. If I do not go, there would not be much loss. Shun Miao smiled. I just feel that the Minister of Land's family actually have so much money. She looked at Xie Jingxing. When Shun Miao saw Shun Dongling at the execution ground, she noticed that Shun Dongling's clothes and jewelry were extremely expensive. No matter how much Wang Bai doted on her, it was not rational to exceed what the Wang family could afford. Then where did the Wang clan get so much silver? Xie Jingxing caught a glimpse of Shun Miao's eyes and tactfully continued. The Wang family is the Crown Prince's people, and the Crown Prince has some relations with the salt smugglers. Wang Bai is the middleman. Shun Miao was suddenly enlightened. No wonder selling illicit salt was a highly profitable business, and even if it was just a small change, it was enough to make one envious. No wonder the Wang family could burn incense. As such, Shun Miao somewhat understood where Shun Dongling's confidence came from. If Shun Dongling had married an ordinary official, she would have been very careful. But now that the Wang family was overflowing with wealth and Wang Bai was working under the Crown Prince, Shun Dongling thought that with Emperor Wenhui supporting the Crown Prince, the great cause of the world would eventually be in the Crown Prince's hands. With the rising tide, the boat would rise, and Wang Bai, as the person who worked for the Crown Prince, naturally would have his value increase. She was Wang Bai's official wife and had boundless glory. It was probably because he was blinded by the glory that he became bolder. Shun Dongling couldn't always keep a clear head, so she couldn't see the facts clearly. There were so many variables in the world, so who could guarantee that the Crown Prince would inherit the throne? Taking 10,000 steps back, even if the Crown Prince inherited the throne, who could guarantee that Wang Bai would be able to sit back and relax under the Crown Prince and rise up step by step? There were many cases of the cunning hare being cooked after it was done, and the most ruthless was the imperial family. Wang Bai is the Crown Prince's people. Shun Miao pondered. Shun Dongling's sudden action must be related to Wang Bai, which means it is related to the Crown Prince. Shun Miao looked at Xie Jingxing. My relationship with the Crown Prince. She wants to make an issue out of my marriage? Chapter 768. Xie Jingxing looked at her with appreciation. Smart. You already knew about it. Shun Miao was somewhat suspicious. It was Shen Dongling's idea. Xie Jingxing casually picked up a piece of pastry and took a bite before saying, to let Huangfu Hao and the Crown Prince come to an agreement and act out a play together. Using your marriage to Huangfu Hao as a request to form an alliance with Ming Qi. Otherwise, the alliance would break apart, and they might attack Ming Qi. At that time, the news would be released, and the commoners would panic and ask Shen Xian to marry you to Huangfu Hao. On one side is the commoners, and on the other side is you. Shen Xian would definitely be in extreme pain. But no one in the world would dare to go against Huangfu Hao. At this time, only the Crown Prince would come forward and say that you and the Crown Prince already have an engagement. Compared to marrying you to the distant Qin country, it would be easier for Shen Xian to accept you marrying the Crown Prince to stay in Mingqi, and would be grateful to the Crown Prince. Xie Jingxing shrugged his shoulders. This Shu, younger sister of yours, is also not a simple character. Shen Miao's face turned livid when she heard this and sneered. She really racked her brains for me. She actually used the commoners of the world to threaten Shen Xian. The inheritance that she received from old General Shun was to fight for the commoners. And when Shen Xian was being threatened by the commoners that he deeply loved, the other side was Shun Miao, his biological daughter. One could imagine how painful Shen Xian's heart was. Among everyone in the Shen residence, Shen Miao and Shen Dongling had always minded their own business. Now that the one who provoked first was cheap, Shen Miao had an uncontrollable disgust towards Shen Dongling. She said, the marriage with the Crown Prince is not possible. Xie Jingxing stared at her with a smile that was not a smile. Why? Want to marry me that much? Not waiting for Shen Miao to get angry, he continued, do not worry. No one in the world would dare to snatch things from my hands. One fear that he would not be able to afford the woman that I fancy. His words were always so unscrupulous that Shen Miao's face inexplicably turned slightly red. She diverted the topic. Shen Dongling schemed against me. Naturally, I have to return 1 or 2 points. Foreign's meaning is my meaning, Xie Jingxing said lazily. Shen Miao, she said, what exactly do you mean now? To destroy Ming Qi and unify the Great Liang? I said before, on this point, I am the same as you. Shen Miao replied. I've said it before. On this point, I'm the same as you. Shen Miao replied. The joking expression on Xie Jingxing's face gradually disappeared. He did not know what Shen Miao was thinking in her heart, as he could not see any clue at all. On the matter of the two countries being enemies, Xie Jingxing had never thought that Shen Miao would support him. Now Shen Miao's state of disregard had already made Xie Jingxing very surprised. And now Shen Miao's expression reminded him that what she said was serious. She wanted to destroy Ming Qi? Why? Shen Miao was not a person who was greedy for fame and fortune, so it was not to echo what he said. And because she loved Xie Jingxing, she could even throw Ming Qi to the back of her mind. Xie Jingxing felt that it was not like it. It seemed that from the moment she knew Shen Miao had been extremely hostile towards the Fu family. Of course, this was because the Fu family also wanted to suppress the Shen family. But Shen Miao was an unmarried girl. How would she know about these things? Sometimes when she looked, she could see more clearly than Shen Xian and Shen Xiao. She had always stood in front of the Shen family with a protective attitude, as if she had long expected what would happen. The closer one was to Shen Miao, the more one discovered that there were many mysteries about Shen Miao. But these actions, even the Fengxian pawn shop could not find out the reason. It really made one suspicious. He hesitated for a moment before asking, you do not like Ming Qi? Shen Miao's eyes drooped down. The general trend of the world, divided for a long time, united for a long time, divided for a long time. This has been the logic since ancient times. It is not something that can be changed if I am willing or not, like or not. Even if I'm not willing or not like, these things will still happen. This is destined. She raised her head and looked at the slightly swaying candle on the table. Moreover, compared to the Fu family, I would rather this country be in your hands. Chapter 769. Xie Jingxing was surprised for a moment. When two countries are at war, It has nothing to do with the common people. These few years, Ming Qi's luck is already at its end. The taxes are heavy and there are continuous natural disasters, making the common people's lives difficult. The officialdom is dark and the officials are corrupt. The emperor is even more muddle-headed. Towards the aristocratic families that had made great contributions, he was wary of schemes and could not wait to kill them. In comparison, the common people of Great Liang are living and working in peace, and all industries are flourishing. Shen Miao said, I know that Emperor Yonglu is a wise ruler. At the beginning, when he attacked other small countries, there were people of other small countries that opened the city gates to welcome him. Isn't it because of this reason? Xie Jingxing looked deeply at Shen Miao, and there was an indescribable feeling in his heart. Everyone said that females were the most short-sighted, only able to see the front and not the bigger picture. Little did they know that it was just that they had not encountered it before. Xie Jingxing had seen the most broad-sighted and knowledgeable female was his imperial sister-in-law, Emperor Yong Li's wife, Empress Xianda. But Empress Xianda was from a historian's family and had a strong memory, and was also the ruler of the 6 palaces. Shen Miao was only 16 years old, and the furthest place she had been to was the Shaochun city. 2 years ago, she was even called a love-struck idiot. But Shen Miao's words about the current situation could not be compared to most of Emperor Yong Li's aides. She did not see herself as a person of a certain country, but stood at the height of history and calmly followed the law, just like following the changes of the 4 seasons. There were not many people in the world who could see so clearly, but this person was sitting in front of him. Xie Jingxing suddenly felt somewhat fortunate. He was the one who discovered this female, and Shen Miao was willing to say these words to him. Shen Miao did not know what Xie Jingxing was thinking in his heart. She only heard Fu Xiu Yi's evaluation of Emperor Yonglu, saying that Emperor Yonglu was an outstanding person throughout the ages and a wise ruler of a generation. The initial territory of Great Liang was not as vast as today. Especially after the death of the late Emperor of Great Liang, there was a period of turmoil in the country, and other countries took the opportunity to invade. Afterwards, when the current Emperor Yonglu ascended the throne, he slowly began to recover the territory, and not only that, he also started to annex the surrounding small countries. Emperor Yonglu was a very charismatic person and followed the hearts of the people. Some of the small country's people even hoped that Emperor Yonglu would annex them to improve their difficult lives. And Emperor Yonglu did it. At that time, Shen Miao was very surprised by this matter, and Fu Xiu he was also very fearful of Emperor Yonglu. Afterwards, when Fu Ming was studying, he also read about this and discussed it with Shen Miao in high spirits. Thus, Shen Miao had a deep memory of this matter. Xie Jingxing paused for a moment and said unhappily, Why do you remember his matters so clearly? Shen Miao. She said, Of course, I'm not that great. I'm just trying to protect myself. If the Fu family was in charge, the Shen family would be destroyed sooner or later. If the monarch was heartless, the officials naturally had no need to uphold morality and justice. Isn't that right? Then how do you know that Emperor Yonglu would not be the second emperor Wen Hui and would not take action against the Shen family? Xie Jingxing asked. One heard that Emperor Yonglu has a general surnamed Li by his side, and his experience was similar to the Shen family, but the Li family was treated with courtesy by Emperor Yonglu. The Shen family's military strength is not as good as that General Li, so there is no need to worry. Shen Miao thought in her heart that at least in her previous lifetime, before she died, this General Li's family lived very well. Xie Jingxing was startled. How do you know that there is a General Li? Shen Miao's heart moved. She had forgotten that she was now the daughter of the Shen family, so naturally it was not possible for her to know the Great Liang's General Li. But she still had to cover up a few words. This General Li is very famous, so it is not strange that Ming Qi knows of him. Very famous? Xie Jingxing frowned. More famous than me? Shen Miao was determined not to say these words to him and said, Let's not talk about these. Since one must deal with Ming Qi at the end, naturally one cannot let the Qin country and Ming Qi form an alliance. If it is so, it would be somewhat troublesome for the Great Liang to deal with. You staying in my Ding capital and not leaving, is it not to break up their alliance? Xie Jingxing smiled gently, following one's husband when one marries. You are very thoughtful for me. Shen Miao ignored the parts of his words that should not be heard and said, there is a good way to break up their alliance. To see if you can do it or not. Xie Jingxing's lips hooked up. Tell me about it. Killing, stealing, framing, and slandering. She smiled gently and dignified. It is best that there is no evidence when dead. Chapter 770. The day seemed to be exceptionally calm, but no one knew if there were any plans hidden under the calmness. Everyone in the residence of Prince Ding was in danger these few days, especially the few advisors that Fu Xiui valued, and they were very careful when they did things. It was because a few days ago Pei Lang, whom Fu Xiui valued the most, was arrested and locked up in the private prison. Everyone was not clear about the specific reason, but there were some servants who were in the know that it was because Pei Lang was a spy sent by Fu Xiuyi's opponent. Before this, no one could deny Pei Lang's talent, even though the guests were jealous that Fu Xiuyi valued him highly. But Pei Lang had indeed solved a lot of problems for Fu Xiuyi in these 2 years. Fu Xiuyi said that he would capture him. Not to mention whether this matter was true or not, but the night before he was captured, Pei Lang and Fu Xiuyi were playing chess and drinking tea together, looking like a ruler and official in harmony. If Fu Xiuyi suddenly knew of the clues, he would definitely investigate if it was true or not. Otherwise, he would wrongly accuse a good person and damage a confidant for no reason. But Fu Xiuyi was so decisive that it could only mean that he had long suspected Pei Lang. To be able to be this intimate even after having doubts, this Prince Ding was not a simple person. No matter if it was to punish the chicken to warn the monkey, the advisors were much more respectful when they faced Fu Xiuyi. However, Fu Xiuyi's days were not as comfortable as other people thought, and he also had some doubts about some things. He sent people to keep an eye on Princess Rong Xian's residence, and at the end learned that Princess Rong Xian actually disguised herself and went to Ping Nan Count residence to look for Su Mingfeng. Even though he did not know what they talked about and did not know why Princess Rong Xian was there, Fu Xiuyi thought that there was definitely something fishy about it. Princess Rong Xian lived in seclusion and did not even have a close relationship with Emperor Wenhui. If there was anything, it would be the early years when Princess Yuqing and Princess Rong Xian were close. But Princess Yuqing had died for many years, and Princess Yuqing's son, Xie Jingxing, was close to Princess Rong Xian, but Xie Jingxing had already died in the northern Jiang battlefield 2 years ago. There was no friendship between Ping Nan Count residence and Princess Rong Xian. Fu Xiuyi racked his brains to think of the connection between Princess Rong Xian and the southern Count residence, but no matter how he searched, he could not find any valuable clues. What made Fu Xiuyi puzzled was why Princess Rong Xian did not look for the Count of Pingnan, Su Yu, but only Su Mingfeng. Su Mingfeng had long left his official career, and for official matters, Su Mingfeng could not help at all. If it was for private matters, did Su Mingfeng privately know Princess Rong Xian? Su Mingfeng. Fu Xiuyi was chewing on this name when he was suddenly surprised. Su Mingfeng's name was well known by many people in the Ding capital. It was not only because he was outstanding and talented, nor was it because it was a pity that he had to retire from the official path due to a serious illness when his career was just right, but it was because he was Xie Jingxing's childhood friend. There was once someone who did not understand why Su Mingfeng would mix around with Xie Jingxing, that playful and mischievous brat all day long when Su Mingfeng looked at this upright and awe-inspiring youth. But the residents of the Marquis of Lin and the residents of the Count of Ping Nan were old friends, so it was understandable to say that their relationship was good. As if he had found some clues, Fu Xiuyi's thoughts were suddenly connected. Su Mingfeng was Xie Jingxing's childhood friend, and Princess Ming and was Xie Jingxing's emu. If Princess Ming and privately went to look for Su Mingfeng, they would most likely talk about Xie Jingxing. But was Xie Jingxing not dead? Why would Princess Ming and suddenly go and ask about a dead person? If it was in the past, everyone would not dare to mention a single word about Xie Jingxing in front of Princess Ming. as they were afraid of poking into Princess Ming and sore spot. Princess Ming took the initiative to ask, could it be that Xie Jingxing was not dead? Fu Xiao jumped in shock at his own sudden guess, but quickly denied it. He had personally seen the secret report on Xie Jingxing's death, so there would not be any mistake. Not to mention that under the watchful eyes of the public, it was impossible to replace the beam with the pillar. Chapter 771. But it was obvious that it was to follow Princess Ming and to investigate Prince Rui's matter. So why would it suddenly go to Su Mingfeng's head and even involve the dead Xie Jingxing? If that was the case, things would become complicated, but it was also more interesting. Fu Xiao stood up and thought for a moment before instructing the person beside him. Go to the dungeon. There was a dungeon in the residence of Prince Ding, and it was built in the ancestral hall in the courtyard. The imperial family's ancestral hall was not here, and the reason why it was built in the residence was to pray to Buddha. There was a benevolent-looking Guanyin statue on the wall, and when one opened that painting, one would see a small, smiling Buddha. After twisting the wooden fish at the feet of the smiling Buddha, the stone door would suddenly open, and one would enter the dungeon of Prince Ding's residence after walking along the stone door. The people locked up in this dungeon were either spies or people under Prince Ding who had committed a big mistake. Normal death was not enough to punish them, and there were all kinds of torture that one would be filled with the smell of blood upon entering. Thin leather-like things were hung on the stone walls. Upon closer inspection, there were actually people who had died. They had been skinned and hung here to dry. They still had the look of extreme agony on their faces before they died. Just a glance at them was enough to make one shudder. Outside was the ancestral hall for praying, but inside was such a demonic business. Under Guanyin's eyelids, this place was like the 18th level of hell and was even more terrifying than the 18th level of hell. Fu Xiao leisurely walked in and looked at the human skins on both sides with eyes full of appreciation. The subordinate beside him led the way and only stopped when they reached the last cell. The person locked up in the cell was hung upside down on the beam, and his entire body was drenched in blood. His robes were dyed bright red, and one could hardly see the original color. Because he was hung upside down, there would be drops of blood dripping onto the ground from time to time, forming a small blood stain. Fu Xiao quietly looked at that person, and that person seemed to have fainted. He gave a look to the person beside him, and immediately someone brought a bucket of chilly water and poured it on the person in the cell. That person quivered, and his entire body could not help but tremble, as if he was in so much pain that he could not speak and was suffering great pain. Fu Xiao smiled and went forward. Is teacher used to it? The chilly water stung the wound, but it also washed away the bloodstains on the prisoner's face, revealing a proud face. It was Pei Lang. Pei Lang smiled and replied with a trembling voice, "Thanks to your highness. I'm doing well. I've long known that Mr. isn't an ordinary person, but I didn't expect that not only are you talented, but your integrity is also worthy of my respect. Otherwise, why would the Shen family send you here?" Fu Xiao sighed. It was said that the soldiers that Shen Exen leads are all valiant and teacher is a scholar, but one's bones are so hard. This one would also like to know how General Shun trains people. Pei Lang gasped for breath and said with a smile, "This subordinate has no relationship with General Shun. It's already been a few days, but you're still so persistent." Fu Xiao said, "Even though the moral integrity is commendable, at the end it gives one a headache, and one has no choice but to specially prepare some unusual games for gentlemen." Pei Lang only smiled and said nothing. Fu Xiao looked at him and spoke in a very gentle tone, as if there was some nostalgia. "Actually, this prince and you, master and servant, can be considered to have a good friendship. Your talent is like the rain, and this one also appreciates it. This prince is soft-hearted and is willing to give you a chance. After atoning for your crimes, it will be as if nothing happened in the past. This prince will still be the same as you in the past. This prince will address you as teacher, and you are this prince's most capable think tank." He got closer to Pei Lang and almost coaxed, "As long as you tell this prince what secret the Shen family has, and what is the purpose of you being sent to this inn." How about 2 sentences in exchange for a chance? Chapter 772. Pei Lang coughed twice and coughed out a few piles of red blood before smiling with difficulty. Many thanks for your highness' great kindness, but this official has no relation with the Shun family and is unable to answer your highness' question. Most likely, even the heavens do not give this official this opportunity. It is such a pity. Fu Xiao, he looked at him expressionlessly and laughed lightly after a long while. He dusted his hands and brushed away the blood that splashed on his body and said, Mister's bones are hard. This prince admires it very much and is also very curious to see how long Mister's bones can last. He waved his hand at the people around him. These things are not good enough for Mister. We can't use them. Let's exchange them for something better. He took a step back and was about to leave when he suddenly thought of something and said, even if teacher does not say, this prince can find out the Shun family secret. But this prince would also like to ask Mister. One heard that the Shun family values friendship and righteousness, and Mister is willing to sacrifice your life. One do not know if General Shun will send someone to rescue Mister out of the fire pit. He left with his guards. After Fu Xiao left, Pei Lang fiercely spat out a large mouthful of blood. This prince who looked gentle and scheming actually had such a vicious and ruthless side. It was just that Fu Xiaoyi's last sentence that made him smile bitterly. It was not false that the Shun family valued friendship and righteousness, but the person that he was handling things for was Shen Miao. Shen Miao valued friendship and righteousness, but that was only to the Shun family. Other than her relatives and friends, others were not important in Shen Miao's eyes. As for whether or not Fu Xiao would come to save him, Pei Lang felt that it should not be the case. Not to mention, if Shen Miao had the ability to fish people out from the residence of Prince Ding, it was the most secretive dungeon. At the beginning, when Shen Miao wanted him to be a hidden chess piece by Fu Xiaoyi's side, she should have expected that there would be such a day. Shen Miao had long known that once Fu Xiao found out, Pei Lang's ending would be extremely miserable, but she still did it. Rationally, he knew that Shen Miao would not come to save him, but Pei Lang's heart actually had a trace of faint expectation. He also could not tell what kind of feeling he had towards Shen Miao. Initially, when Shen Miao used Lu Ying to threaten him, Pei Lang's heart was somewhat disgusted as he hated the feeling of being threatened and not being able to control himself. But later, he did not know why, but he really treated himself as Shen Miao's person. He would worry for Shen Miao and do his best to be a good chess piece. Pei Lang himself was unable to understand his own way of doing things. He thought that he probably owed Shen Miao something in his previous life, so that he would follow her around in this life, and almost change his life. The guard responsible for torturing him came again. Pei Lang put aside the thought in his mind and began a new round of torture. What he did not know was that in Prince Rui's residence, Huolong and Nightingale were sitting on a tree eating melon seeds. Nightingale asked, Boss Ji and Master Gao haven't come out yet. How long are they going to guard the tower prison? Huolong spat out a melon seed shell and said, I reckon that Master has completely forgotten about this matter. Master had been running around outside these past few days. How could he have the time to care about other people? I heard that the Great Liang Palace has sent another letter to urge you. Mistress probably wants to finish these matters and return to the palace as soon as possible. That's right, but Boss Ji has been staying in the tower prison. What about the news from the Feng Xian pawn shop? Won't it delay things? Huolong rolled her eyes at Nightingale. The Feng Xian pawn shop earns money, and naturally the MOU army will report the information to Master. Moreover, Boss Ji's own concerns are all inexplicable matters. So how would there be any proper matters? Worry for nothing. When Nightingale heard this, she felt that her companion's words were reasonable and said, That is also true. Why bother so much? There were some things in the world that were a freak combination of factors. Sometimes a small change would cause the entire trajectory of the matter to change. In the study of the Feng Xian pawn shop's Linjiang Immortal Tower, there was a thick stack of letters at the corner of the desk. Most likely no one tidied it up as it was covered with a layer of dust. And at the bottom of the stack was a letter with 3 words written on the envelope. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.